You are listening to the Delay and Pray podcast, episode number 173.
Welcome to the Delay and Pray podcast, where certified Catholic and weight loss coach Beth teaches you how to permanently lose weight through spiritual fasting. Get ready to gain faith and lose weight through a joyful transformation of both body and soul. Now, your host, Beth, the Catholic fasting coach.
Hey, welcome back, everyone. I hope your Lent is going well. Today, we are diving into the third pillar of Lent called almsgiving. And this is where we are going to talk about money. And it's not easy sometimes talking about money, but we are also going to talk about time and generosity and just that uncomfortable little squeeze in the heart when God asks for more than we plan to give. So that's where money comes in. So when we think mostly about Lent, we think about the first two pillars. They come to mind very quickly. Prayer, yes, of course, more prayer, more sacraments, more stations of the cross, more rosaries, more prayer, check. And then we have fasting. Okay, that's the big one. This is the one we talk about all the time in our community. And we really focus on keeping the fast for Jesus Christ and for our why. And that is a pivotal point of Lent and something that we really focus on. But today, I want to talk about almsgiving. Almsgiving is sometimes like, that sock that rolls behind the dryer and we think, we'll deal with it later because it's really hard to get back there. But we need to do it. We really need to think about how much money we're giving during Lent, including our talent and our time. So it is fascinating how almsgiving often becomes the pillar that we postpone, or we just kind of keep giving as we normally do. And we don't make Lent a really special time for giving a little bit more during, this season. We intend to do it. We just haven't quite decided how we're going to do it yet. And maybe we just don't even get to it. So there's a reason for that, because giving away what we have, especially our money, our time, our comfort, more than usual during Lent is uncomfortable and we're selfish. We just are, especially today in this world of abundance that we live in. Now, I myself, I really struggled with this one. I really do. I have in my notes here that I struggle sometimes, but I struggle hard with this one, actually. I like to give, and I do give, but I also like to buy things. And that is something that I really intend to get a hold of this Lent and this year. The way that I'm beginning to see real almsgiving is really tied to the fasting and prayer. And the goal is not to consume material things as much anymore. This is in addition to not consuming as much food or drinking. And like I said, this is a little struggle for me. And so that is something I'm really going to work on, for the rest of Lent. So my goal is not to buy anything that is not a necessity. In other words, that we don't need to live. Okay, this is during Lent, and then just not consuming as much throughout the year. And one of the things I consume a lot are books, and I just order them really quickly off of Amazon, and I do read them. I mean, I use them, and I like to keep them for reference. But one of the things I wanted to do this year, my husband loves to go on eBay. He loves to, go on thrift shops and buy things that are used. And so I'm going to start doing that this year. And I'm also going to really think about whether I really need this book and whether it's worth my time to consume it. So that is one thing I'm going to do. And then the other thing is clothes. I do love to buy clothes. I don't buy a lot of it, but you know what? My closet is busting. It's busting at the seams. We have a very small closet right now in our lake house. But, I was just thinking I really need to just try on everything and give to Goodwill and to charity what I don't like and what I don't use anymore, and then consider just only buying what I need. So those are some of the things that I want to do. And I think this season of non-consumption during Lent is going to teach me how to do it. And this will be really freeing because of, the three pillars and how they fortify each other. And I think that's really, really important. So, not consuming and really giving this year, just making a list and really giving. And that's what I want to talk to you, about for this podcast. And this is why the church has always taught us that almsgiving is just as important as prayer and fasting. And it should hurt you a little bit, kind of like fasting. If you're fasting and you are keeping the fast and you actually go to bed a little bit hungry, you're doing it right. If you go to bed full all the time, then I don't think you're doing it correctly. Okay. And if that's you, then you need to go get into my program, into the coaching program, so that you can try to figure that out. But I know that when the scale is not moving up or the scale is moving down and I'm a little hungry and I'm eating well, but small and praying big, I know that I am fasting well. And it's the same thing with, your money and giving to the poor, right? So, when your house isn't busting at the seams with a bunch of stuff and you're not giving loads to Goodwill all the time, and you're not consuming as much, and then you're giving that money away instead of watching it pile up in your bank account, then you're doing the giving part right. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that the three pillars of Lent are really meant to work together. When one is missing, the others are actually losing some of their power. And this is kind of what I've learned. And that's why the church is so beautifully guiding us through these three pillars, right? So how I think about it is that prayer tends to lift our hearts to God, and it also weakens our attachments to things, among many other things, than just food or drink. And this is helpful because prayer is an influx of graces, especially when it's combined with the rosary and sacraments. And so we have all that grace and that virtue that's working within us to stop the consumption. And then fasting literally makes physical room for Jesus Christ in our bodies and our souls, and reminds us that we don't have to be ruled by our appetites and our passions, that we don't have to be moved by our emotions all the time. Emotions are very, very important, and they're great signals as to, what our thoughts might be about certain things. And we love emotions, but we don't have to be ruled by our passions and our appetites. And then we have this almsgiving part. And this pushes us outwards towards others and really makes room in our hearts for the poor. And like I said, this is something I really need to work on myself. So the tradition of the church teaches something really simple and profound, in that almsgiving is love in action. And you've always heard in your parish, time, treasure, and talent, right? And so that is something that we need to really think about on a daily basis. It is a direct response to the call of Jesus to love our neighbor, and that is the virtue of justice. This is where we actually give, God and our neighbor just everything that they deserve. It's more than what they are due, it's what they deserve, God and our neighbor. And that is our ultimate love and help. So the Gospel of Matthew has Jesus saying this: I was hungry and you gave me food. I was thirsty and you gave me drink. I was a stranger and you welcomed me. And when the people ask him, when did they ever see him hungry or thirsty? Of course, you know the answer. We hear it all the time at Mass. He says, whatever you did for the least of my brothers, you did for me. But I think sometimes we can just kind of, go through Mass, go through the liturgy, be very reverent and understand, but then maybe walk out of those church doors not changed as to, okay, how can I give more? Who are the least of my brothers? Do you make a list? And so that's what I think we can do during this Lent. This is what I intend to do. Every act of generosity is actually directed towards Christ himself, and that's what we need to remember. When you feed someone who is hungry, you are feeding Christ. So make a list. Who's hungry that you know of, and how can you help? And when you give clothing to someone who needs it, you clothe Christ. How do you put everything away into a bag when you give it to Goodwill? Are you just shoving it in there and not thinking about maybe the person who will buy it and needs it? And so maybe you can pray while you're doing that, when you're cleaning out your closet this Lent and cleaning out your drawers and just, whatever is in your closets. It would be really wonderful to start praying for those people who would wear those. Now I know Goodwill and some of the other places, it's not always, poor people who buy that, right? For sure not. But it's okay. Everyone needs prayers. So just pray for those people who are actually going to purchase that item and pray for an increase in virtue for them. Isn't that beautiful? And this is the way you're going to clothe Christ. And then think about like, who do you know who might be lonely or suffering? Maybe you give them a call or a text, or maybe you even go over and sit quietly with that person and comfort them. Because when you comfort them by a letter or a text or a phone call or even a visit, you comfort Christ. And I think what we need to do, though, is write this down. I'm a big fan of journaling. I'm a big fan of writing things down because it makes it more concrete with your prefrontal cortex. And so that you actually have a better chance of doing it, of carrying that action out. This is what we need to do. So, almsgiving is not charity in the abstract, right? We don't want to be like, oh, yeah, that's such a sweet scripture passage. I totally believe that. And then you don't change your behavior. Nope, nope, nope. This is where you have to have this personal love offered to Jesus, really, because that personal love offered to Jesus is disguised as our neighbor. And that's who we need to do this for. Now, we might even do it for our husband and our own kids. They're our neighbors too. Okay, so that's probably your first line of action, and then go out from there. It takes time and effort to figure out how you will give. You want to have intention here. I don't give to just any organization today, even ones affiliated with the Catholic Church. I really pick and choose very decisively, and I'm using my mind, my heart, and my intellect to make wise decisions around donating. I know a lot of people say, oh, I just write a check. I let the church figure it out. It's okay if you're like that. I'm just not. So I'm very intentional about who I donate to. Because in my eyes, almsgiving isn't just about the amount you give, it's about the spirit in which you give it. So being thoughtful, I think, is important. Now, I'm just a lowly person over here trying to teach fasting to the world. So, I have no authority in this. Do what you want. But I am in the know. I listen to a lot of podcasts out there. I listen to what's happening within the church. And so I try to make really great decisions. So the thing is about the spirit of giving is that Jesus made this very clear when he praised the poor widow who dropped those 2 small coins into the temple treasury. And it was 2 coins, and that's all she had. But Christ said she gave more than all the others because she gave from her heart. And actually, she gave where it hurt. Okay, she didn't have a lot. So she had to give out of not her abundance, but basically her lack. And wow, does God love that? And I think that's my goal. I think I give from my abundance and I don't give from my lack. And so it's very interesting. And I'm going to really be working on that this Lent. So I kind of call this the strange mathematics of the kingdom of God. Okay. The world measures generosity by dollars, but God measures generosity by love and sacrifice. So is your almsgiving like your fasting? Is it sacrifice? I mean, does it hurt when you give? Kind of like when you go to bed and you're a little bit hungry because you're fasting for the love of God and for a particular person. This is really, really important. So for families who have been blessed with financial stability, Lent is an incredible opportunity to make a real impact. And even now in this time of life we're at, Mike and I will be heading into retirement the next 10 years. And you kind of, I don't know, you have this like worldly view of sort of like hogging your money and not giving it too much away because, hey, going into retirement, maybe not a lot's going to be going in. That's exactly the right time to give because God works that way. It's just crazy. So Lent is an incredible opportunity to just make a real impact, not only to feed the poor, but also to build up virtue for yourself because you know where you're going. You're going to heaven. That's where you want to go. You're turning towards the divine will to get to heaven. So you don't need all this stuff. It's hard. Believe me, I'm not talking out of both ends of my mouth here. It's really, really difficult. It's something I'm going to be working on as well. So you might consider giving to food banks, to pregnancy centers, local organizations that support the church and those in need. I know that's kind of what I do. And some families commit to tithing even a higher percentage of their income during Lent. So you can do that. Some even match donations within their family or workplace to encourage others to give as well. But this is the season, okay? These are powerful ways to practice monetary almsgiving, and it's important. Almsgiving is not only for people with money, by the way. The church has always taught that generosity comes in three forms. We've already talked about this: time, talent, and treasure. So every single one of us possesses these in different amounts during different seasons of life. So even if money is really tight right now and you are not in a season of abundance, this doesn't mean you can just take almsgiving off the table. It just might mean God is inviting you to give something else: your time, your attention, your presence, volunteering at the parish food pantry, or helping one of your neighbors with yard work, babysitting for a struggling single parent, visiting someone who is sick or in a nursing home, cooking a meal for a family that's overwhelmed, donating clothes, like I said, or household items that someone else needs desperately. So even instead of a Goodwill type of situation, do you know people who might be able to use some of the stuff you have? I mean, just call them up and say, would you like this? I know that my daughter-in-law, right after my son and she got married, she got a lot of new appliances, and she had just asked me, hey, I have this really nice food processor. Do you want it? Do you want it, Beth? And I was like, yes, I'd take that. That's much nicer than the one I have. And so, it's just kind of fun. So also think of other people that might need your things and call them up and say, would you like this? So these acts might seem small, but they're really, really generous in God's economy. They're huge. They're enormous. I mean, this is how the Lord wants us to think, is like thinking of others, like especially those that we love the most, because people do need money, no doubt, but they also need love and presence and just to know that you're thinking about them. So you can always ask about this. So the tradition of the church actually gives us a roadmap for this through something called the works of mercy. And I want to just bring these Catholic words back. The corporal works of mercy address the physical needs of others. We feed the hungry. What does that look like in your life? Can you list all of those people who might be hungry that live in your area or around you? Give drink to the thirsty, okay? Clothe the naked, shelter the homeless, visit the sick, visit the imprisoned, bury the dead. Okay, all of those things, how can you help with all of those things? And even if you are not up to visiting the imprisoned, I know some men from my old parish. One of them is my brother-in-law, who actually goes to the local jail and visits them and reads the Bible with them. So I could call him up and say, how can I support you? I, as a woman, do not feel led to actually go into the prison or the jail, but you do. So how can I help you? So it's kind of just writing down the corporal works of mercy and just kind of trying to figure out this Lent how I can actually help with each particular one. And then there's the spiritual works of mercy, which actually care for the soul. And that's instructing the ignorant, counseling the doubtful, admonishing sinners, bearing wrongs patiently, forgiving others willingly, comforting the afflicted, and praying for the living and the dead. Write all those down, or just they're listed on, Google. So Google spiritual and corporal works of mercy, print that out, and then write down how you are actually fulfilling working out these works of mercy during this Lent. I am telling you, you're going to just feel like a new person after doing this. So we know in the Catholic Church that these works have guided Christian charity for centuries, but I think we've just forgotten. Not only are we in a season of abundance, but we are in a season of busyness that we don't have time for other people. I don't know what we're doing. We're way too busy. So these are a real blueprint for what real love of neighbor looks like. And remember, the love of neighbor starts close to you, your husband, your children, your real neighbors right next door to you, and then go out. It'd be interesting. So in this podcast, however you got the email for this podcast, if you're on my wait list or you're on my list, you're going to get an intro to this podcast. And I would love to know how many you were able to check off. There's plenty of time to work on the list still left. So if you do that, please hit return in this email that you have received. And I'd like to know, how many were you able to check off? And then I would love to know how you listed this all out, because everybody's going to be different. And maybe I'll do a future podcast on that, because I think this is, fascinating. So remember, almsgiving doesn't just help the person receiving the gift. I think it's really for you. I think it's for you and me. It really changes the giver, gives us virtue, helps us get to heaven, helps us be a better person, helps us be more free and get rid of this junk that we think we need. Human beings are inclined to sin because of the fall, and we know that. So we have to continually use our agency to try to Just stay away from sin and turn to the divine will with Jesus Christ, because He is the answer. He is the answer to everything that we do that is good. It's because of Him that we're doing great things. And we just have this natural tendency toward attachment. But if we keep going in prayer, we keep lifting up our hearts in prayer, increasing our fasting, then we will detach from these things. So, what are we attached to? We are attached to money, we're attached to comfort, and we're attached to control. And that's pretty much just me right there. It's me. And so I've been working over these past few years, and I'm lessening the attachment to all these things, and it's beautiful, but it's hard work. So almsgiving loosens these attachments. It really is like fasting. So fasting loosens that attachment to food, but almsgiving also loosens our attachment to possessions. And that is so wonderful. It really is freeing. Less possessions, less food, less drink, more prayer, more giving, more loving of others and of loving God. So all these practices open our space in the heart, our beautiful hearts for God. And sometimes the Lord nudges us in very unexpected ways. I recall an event that happened about 5 years ago on Ash Wednesday morning. I went to Mass early. I stopped at Target to pick up a few things. It was early and quiet, and I had decided that I was 5 times during Lent, I was going to buy the person behind me, I was going to buy their groceries or, buy whatever they were purchasing. And I was still early in the game here. So I was looking at this woman behind me and she had just 3 items. I'm like, okay, that looks good. This is new. I'm just going to try this. It looked like she had like a gallon of milk and I don't know, something in a can. And then it looked like a box, like, I don't know if it was Jell-O or soap or something like that. So as I paid for my items, I kind of felt the nudge from the Holy Spirit. And I said to the woman checking out, I was like, I'd really like to pay for her groceries. Let me ask her. So I gently said, would you mind if I paid for your groceries this morning? She goes, oh, no, honestly, you don't have to. I have some, I think she said expensive items, but I didn't really hear her. Anyway, so she smiled and she was like, that would be so kind of you. And then the cashier rang them up. And that little box that I thought was Jell-O, well, it was a $78 ink cartridge at the time. And I laughed nervously. I was just like, oh my gosh, that's so funny. Joke's on me. Well, Lord, I thought you really wanted me to be generous today. And so this is how it goes. Okay, well, he knew I had $78 to give. He knew exactly. I didn't think I wanted to give 78, but at the time, he was like, you're going to give this $100, to this woman. So anyway, it's interesting because she was so thankful to me, so thankful. And she followed me out to the parking lot, even thanked me again. And she explained she really couldn't afford this ink cartridge, that her daughter needed it for work and just all these things. And it was very sweet. And suddenly the whole moment made sense to me. And then since then, I have done this several times. And every single time it's been really impactful. And there's humility to it as well. So it's kind of an interesting thing to do. And I would suggest that you try it this Lent, because God simply invites us into other people's needs if you just listen to Him and listen for the prompting of the Holy Spirit. And this is really how almsgiving works. You don't have to do it on your own. You can actually ask discernment from the Lord, and He will always answer you. And it's not always dramatic, like I'm talking about. Sometimes, just a quiet moment of generosity when the Holy Spirit nudges you is wonderful. And so that was beginning almost 5 years ago. And I've continued the trend throughout the years, especially during Lent. And it just gets easier and easier. So the deeper mystery of all of this is that when we give, God multiplies it back. Remember, God's economy tips our world thinking upside down. Scripture is full of this strange multiplication. 5 loaves and 2 fish feed thousands. It doesn't make sense, but it works. Your heart needs to be intent on reaching out to helping others. You need to, and I should not say you, I should say I need to remember to fill my own bags less often and fill other people's bags more often. And that's the goal. That's the goal. So the less expensive things I buy, the more I can pay for others' things. And it's very interesting. And I think that's going to drive me and you closer to being that widow, because a widow's oil never runs out, as it says in the Bible. And so why don't we test that? Small acts of charity ripple outward into lives we may never even see. The graces of Lent are bountiful, my friends. This is the perfect time to try this out. This is so fun. And that's why the saints spoke so strongly about charity. Saint Robert Bellarmine, one of my favorite saints, once said, "Charity is that which no man is lost, and without which no man can be saved." Ooh. So you can never be lost when you're charitable. And if you're not charitable, you cannot be saved, according to this saint. Ooh, oh snap. Charity is not optional here. Okay, it's essential. No more buy one for you and buy one for me. It has to be buy one for you and I will go without. Yes, because it's the right thing to do. Not because God needs our money, but because we need to give our money away, and it really is for us and our sanctity. God demands we give to the best of our ability and the best of our means, because love transforms the human heart, and that brings us back to Lent. Lent is always a season of transformation. Prayer changes our relationship with God. Fasting changes our relationship with food and drink, and almsgiving changes our relationship with others. And together, all these three pillars reshape the entire human heart, ours and others. Lent after Lent after Lent. The Lents just keep getting better, my friends. So I pray, who needs my help today, Lord? Let me make my list, and I'll get back to you at a later date on that. But I would love to hear yours as well. And I've noticed something else that's very beautiful over the years. As Mike and I fast more each year and each Lent, something amazing happens. We're able to pray more, we're able to fast more, and give more generously. It's incredible how these three pillars begin working together. Fasting just softens the heart, where prayer deepens this trust in God, and then almsgiving flows naturally from that place. And I think that's what's happening. They really do strengthen one another. And honestly, I was reading an old fasting book, and it did say in there that the money you save during Lent should really be given to the poor. And I'm like, oh, really, that's what it should be. You remember the old rice bowls? I know some of them are still at the churches, but I do not partake in that anymore because of just certain opinions that I have. But I can always give to other places. So it's a very traditional practice in the church even now. We just don't talk a lot about it. So if you skip meals, eat simply, if you're cutting back on luxuries, if you're giving things away, don't let that money just disappear into the budget somewhere. Let it become alms. Let it become alms for others. Let it become food for someone else or help for someone in need. Drink for the thirsty, clothes for the naked. Let it do that. Lent is a beautiful place to really cognitively think about this. So again, my personal opinion is, I really don't give to Catholic Charities or the Rice Bowl, but I search for other things. I love our parish food pantry. I love the Women's Care Center. I love Sisters for Life. I love just giving to certain parish funds and other things as well. So I've seen firsthand all of these things and the good they do are in our own community. So I try to stay local. And there's some other people too that I personally know who need some help due to job loss, et cetera. And so we direct our dollars there. And we kind of sit down and make a list of what we plan to give and all the people and organizations we know who need dollars this last month of Lent, this March. It's kind of interesting and it's kind of fun to do. So wherever you decide to give, do it and give it generously. Jesus Christ will never be outdone in generosity. When you give to him through the poor, he returns it in ways you cannot imagine. And remember, your thoughts have to be one of blessing others. It's not a ledger, okay? You're not, oh, I'm supposed to do this, so out of duty, I'm supposed to do this. I mean, if you start there, that's okay. But really right away, you can have the thoughts of blessing others, with your money, your time, your talent. So you can say, how do I bless others, Lord? How would you like me to do this last month? Giving your time to the sacraments is really powerful, especially adoration, to actually figure this out. So take that time in Eucharistic adoration. I know St. Tom's here in our local community is, oh my gosh, they're having adoration every Sunday after the 10:30 Mass to the 6 p.m. Mass. It's amazing. And then adoration during the week in the evenings with confession during that time, Stations of the Cross every Friday night. I mean, the amount of community service that's available, the amount of just daily participation, serving the parish, serving the poor, helping neighbors. I mean, it's pretty amazing. And I hope your parish is doing that as well. So there's really no excuse not to get really involved in all of these things and make Lent really, really special this year. All right, so that's it for me. My goal is to get hungry, to get holy, and get generous for Christ. And I know Easter will be here soon, so I got to get a move on and really double down. So don't waste these graces that Our Lady yearns to rain down on all of us. Don't waste them. You will not regret it. All right, God bless. See you next week, my friends. Take care. If you are interested in learning more about spiritual fasting and permanent weight loss, then come join my course, Delay and Pray, a guided course for weight loss through spiritual fasting. You won't go through it alone either. I will be there to coach you every step of the way. This is a group coaching program where you are part of an amazing community of like-minded Catholics who have the same goal as you, to bring about miracles while losing that weight permanently through spiritual fasting. Your purchase includes an online course detailing what spiritual fasting is, how to do it, and all the tools you need to get you the results you're longing for. Head over to my website right now at thecatholicfastingcoach.com and get the details on how to join. And don't forget to follow me on Instagram, Facebook, Pinterest, and LinkedIn to always get the latest daily information to help you keep fasting, my friends. Can't wait to see you in there. May God bless you and keep you always.